Welcome back to Rewitched, a charmed 1998 rewatch journey. I'm your host, Jess Sabanko, and I can't wait to share my thoughts on one of my favorite shows with you. Though episodes are now shorter, I will still be keeping them spoiler-free and welcome fans new and old to join me on my journey here and on social media at Rewitched_pod on Instagram and TikTok. Currently, I'm on season 5. All right, so this week we're talking about season 5, episode 15, The Day the Magic Died. This is a favorite of mine, not just for the season, but for the series overall. It's a really good one, a really memorable one. In terms of our villains' innocence of the week, we do have quite a few evil characters who appear in this episode, but the ones I'll mainly focus on are our main antagonists, who are Cronin the Sorcerer, and of course, Doris, who is Victor's new wife. In terms of our innocence, we have the sisters, we have kind of the whole world really needing to be protected and saved in this episode. In terms of our setup, we start out with this idea from the very beginning that there's all of this big magical stuff going on. We know that Piper is supposed to be 6 weeks away from giving birth, but spoiler, the baby will be born in this episode. And we find out almost immediately that the Aurora Borealis is coming on. They could see it from San Francisco. We know that there's this Wiccan Sabbath happening the very next day, and we later find out that Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars are all in Gemini, which is this planetary alignment that only happens every 300 years. So there's this big magical burst of signs and energy really pointing to something big going on, and we find out what that is all connected to a prophecy having to do with the baby. In terms of the sisters' individual storylines going on here, so like I said, Piper is getting closer and closer to having this baby. She hasn't really been feeling well, but thinks it's mostly normal pregnancy stuff. But in the very first scene, as she's about to get up to go to bed, just as Leo is also being summoned by the elders, which has something to do with all these signs going on, she does pass out. They have to take her to the hospital. We find out at the hospital that she has this condition that, had she been seeing a regular doctor, would have been found earlier, called toxemia, which is basically a form of high blood pressure, and it can lead to her either going into labor prematurely, the baby being born very small, and other complications. So it's important that she's on bed rest and reduces her stress, which of course the doctor is like, do you have any unusual stress in your life? And Paige is like, very unusual. So kind of hinting at that fact that, one, Piper is a very high-strung person, but also the fact that they deal with so much in their lives that causes that stress for her. The sisters, of course, are very eager to make sure that everything's okay with Piper and the baby, so they're kind of setting up her room with all these candles and flowers and things to help her relax, including some mud from the Dead Sea that Paige went to go get. And we also find out that they've been receiving all these magical gifts, such as these geese that lay golden eggs. We later find out that there's a unicorn in their kitchen from Elle, which we find out at the end of the episode is the elders who sent it for a specific reason. When we cut away from the sisters the night before, we do see that there are these two sorcerers, Cronin, who is again one of our main villains, and this guy Stanley, who's like his apprentice, talking about this prophecy and how he wants Stanley to go to the Charmed Ones. And he's kind of like, that's a suicide mission. He's like, yes, but it's a great sacrifice and your name will be remembered forever. But he doesn't even know his name. So it's just like obviously him tricking him. We also find out at the manor that Victor is about to come for a visit. So they obviously want to keep all the magical going on pretty secret, hide all of the magical gifts they've been receiving. They're wondering if they can return them, that sort of thing. In terms of Piper's arrival at the house, her and Leo do have a conversation where she brings up like kind of the, I should have been seeing a doctor. He's like, I knew this was coming. She's like, I'm being a bad mother by like not following my instincts. And he says that, lots of people have babies at home. And she says, yes, but I didn't choose this. You guys chose it for me, even though my instincts were telling me no. And he, of course, then agrees that if she wants to have the baby in the hospital, like they'll deal with any magical repercussions afterwards. He wants her to feel safe and secure, which I think is a really nice moment for them. And Leo finally accepting that like when your wife is having a baby, you should do what makes her comfortable, not you. So glad he finally got there. It only took, 8 months of this pregnancy for him to realize it. So then we, of course, have Paige and Phoebe's storyline in this episode, which is really all about protecting Piper. It's kind of bringing me back to the wedding episode where they're trying to keep all the magical going-ons from her so that she doesn't stress out. And of course, in this one, it's the fact that they lose their powers, right? So when the unicorn arrives and Paige tries to orb him away because Phoebe's like, no, this is going to be stressful for Piper, she realizes she can't, and then they realize they don't have powers at all, which is also something they try to keep a secret from Piper. Like when Leo goes to knock something over and Piper's about to freeze it, he tells her that like using her powers will be too much stress for her. So the sisters then start to think about what they can do next. They realize the Book of Shadows is blank. Leo got a phone call from another charge and realizes that powers are gone all over. Then Stanley shows up. He has no powers. The sisters kill him and hide him in the closet to keep it a secret from Piper and of course from Victor and his new wife Doris, who just show up. Apparently they met on a singles cruise, really hit it off. They're really like touchy and kind of like over the top with each other for being in front of his children in this episode, but whatever, I guess if that makes them happy. And there are several scenes where they're up in Piper's room having conversations with her, talking about like him as a lover and stuff. It's gross. And Phoebe and Piper, you can see how uncomfortable they are with this, but the parents do not seem to care at all about it. And of course, Piper doesn't want to be left alone with a stranger, but the sisters are doing all this stuff in the background. Piper obviously knows something is going on, and she kind of says this to Leo later on in the episode when she's like, Leo, like, I'm not stupid, right? Like, what the fuck is going on? When he finally does tell her, she's kind of like upset, of course, that he kept the secret, but does ultimately realize that like they have to do what they need to do. And, you know, she has to worry about like herself and keeping the baby safe, which is her top priority in this episode. The sisters do have Cronin then show up at the house. They meet with him in the backyard. He talks about this summit between good and evil, how he's known about this day that magic was going to shut down and that it's up to them to save it. The longer it's out, the longer, you know, basically it's harder to get back. And so they decide to meet at a neutral location. Paige is at first very like suspicious about it, doesn't want to do it. But then Phoebe says that they have to do it. It's ultimately the only way that they can protect Piper and the baby, and Leo agrees with this because without magic, like, they're very vulnerable. They decide to go to the summit. They are gonna make all these little like homemade like bombs and weapons and things that they can use because there are not supposed to be any weapons at this summit. And Paige does set it up to be at a neutral location of a pizzeria. When they get there, they check their bags for weapons. The only thing they're kind of suspicious about is the candle, but like Phoebe's very quick to cover this up and be like, oh, we wanted to try like a Wiccan ritual to bring magic back, whatever. And that's when we realize that everyone inside the pizzeria is actually a demon. They couldn't resist the opportunity to take out the charmed ones. A fight breaks out. The sisters are kicking a lot of ass, and ultimately it's just the wizard who was Cronin's mentor who's left, because Cronin, as the fight starts, kind of sneaks out and says to make sure that the sisters don't get out alive. And so they are able to handcuff him to this table and force him to talk as Paige kind of like holds a knife to his throat. And they find out that centuries ago, he had stolen this prophecy from an apothecary, which is a source of good magic, and that he found out about a twice blessed child being born as all of this mystical stuff was converging. That's when Paige kind of realizes like, oh God, like they're after Piper's baby, and her and Phoebe have to go back to the manor. When they get there, they do hear Piper screaming. At this point, Doris has revealed her true nature after Piper's water broke. Leo goes to get the sisters, obviously thinking that Piper needs them because she even says it. And Doris then stabs Victor while they're in the other room and then pretends that he went with Leo and she's there to help Piper kind of get through the birth because she used to like volunteer at a hospital so she can be helpful. So that's when the sisters are back downstairs. They of course hear Piper screaming. Paige is like, no, like he won't hurt her until after the baby is born. Like as long as she's in labor, she's safe. And they go down to the basement where Paige realizes that she can kind of shave off some magical dust from the unicorn's horn because they're a source of good magic. So is the apothecary, so that there must be good magic that can stop everything that's going on right now. And they realized then that it was a gift from the elders because when Leo couldn't go to them, they had to send something that could still help the sisters to stop this evil plan going on. So they write a spell, and just as they're finishing the spell, Cronin does come downstairs because he heard a noise from them. And as he's approaching them, Piper has knocked out Doris by hitting her in the head with a flower thing, because obviously they tell the plan that they want to steal the baby and raise her evil to be this powerful underworld leader. And Piper's talking about how, like, you know, if they do anything to hurt the baby, like, she'll kill them even if she has to come back from the dead. It's this moment of like Piper's motherhood, her dedication to her baby, and I really love Piper in this episode. Everything about her, the way that she's so dedicated to the baby, is really touching to me, and I just feel for her in all these moments. Her strength of being able to escape, of course, then she does trip going on the stairs and is laying in that little like part between like the lower level of stairs and the bigger level of stairs. Cronin comes back over to her, grabs her, Doris comes down the stairs. Cronin has her at knife point as Phoebe and Paige come up and are about to do the spell. Piper's like, come on, kill him, like just do it, you have to save the baby, I don't matter anymore. But Phoebe can't. That's when Victor comes rushing down the stairs, grabs Cronin, throws him over the stairs, and Phoebe and Paige then do the spell. Him, Doris, and Stanley's body that was in the closet all blow up. The sisters are safe. Leo comes running in just as they're getting Piper onto the table to give birth. They deliver the baby. He heals Victor again using the magic from the unicorn. There's still more of that dust. They talk Piper through the delivery, and as the baby's being born, we see the chandelier start glowing. We see that magic is coming back into the universe. The baby is born in this swirl of orbs, and then it was revealed that the baby is a boy. And it's this really cute moment where like everyone's so happy. They're all standing there together looking at the baby, and Piper tells him that he's safe and he's loved and he's wise, and I'm crying, they're all crying. It's just a really cute ending to this episode. And I'm so excited to see like what this means, what this twice blessed child thing means for the future of the show. How powerful is this baby gonna be? What does it mean now that it's a boy and not a girl? We know that the Halliwell line has always been matriarchal. So like, what does this shift mean for the magical universe and for the sisters? I'm really just like so excited to see what's coming next. I really love this episode. Like I said, I think it's well paced. I think the story and structure is really fun. I love the idea of the sisters still, again, being so clever and so great at fighting and figure things out even without their magic, as we've seen multiple times in the show before. I love the strength of each character. I really love Piper in this episode. I think that Phoebe and Paige's storylines are really fun. I think that Leo is a good and supportive husband in this episode. And I like having Victor there. I like that their dad, who's been so absent in their lives, does ultimately save the day alongside them. I think it's really cute, especially with how kind of not into magic and stuff he is. And yeah, this is such a good one, and I just can't say that enough. And I'm really excited again to see where we're going and what the rest of this season holds for us. I mean, the two major storylines I was already noting at the beginning of the season in terms of Cole and the baby being born are now complete. So like, what is next for the sisters? Where are we going from here? But yeah, that's all I have for this one. So I hope you'll join me back next time.